This is the Wildly Wonderful Podcast, Wide Open Spaces with Elise, aka the Fiery Redhead, where I get raw, edgy, and not so politically correct. You can find me at wideopenspaceswithelise.com. Elise is spelled I-L-I-S-E. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you love listening to your favorite podcast. Now let's listen, let's talk, and let's evolve together. Welcome to episode number 187. Is your anxiety connected to the environment? So thank you for joining me so much today to talk about anxiety. I always like to give a shout out to different places in the world, over 88 countries, that have listened or downloaded this podcast in the last week. And because we're talking about anxiety, I decided to go down my list. Remember, these are podcasts where people have listened to me from their countries. So I'm not eliminating other countries on purpose. It's just that they haven't listened to this podcast. And I decided to go down the list to countries where I thought a lot of anxiety is being provoked by their environment. The first one I'm going to mention is the country of Turkey, the country of Ukraine, the country of Israel, and the country of the good old United States of America. Obviously, that's where this episode is coming to you from, but I feel like I'm in a pressure cooker with anxiety. So I brought up the United States of America today. Before I move on, I'd like to thank two different podcasts that had me on as a guest this week. The episodes haven't dropped yet, but I will notify you as soon as they were dropped. I am very honored when someone wants me to be a guest. I don't know. It just kind of just tells me where this podcast is going and that my voice matters and that others who have podcasts believe that my voice will matter on their podcast. So thank you to the podcast, The Shit That Goes On in Your Head, with G-Rex and Dirty Skittles. I did it this past Saturday while I was on vacation in Walt Disney World. So from the Wilderness Lodge in my hotel room, I was a guest on that podcast. And this past Monday, I was a guest on Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. So as soon as I know when those episodes drop, I will definitely let you know and give you a shout out. So once again, thank you to them. So, is your anxiety connected to the environment? Well, for me, my anxiety has been heightened. I go through waves. I don't know about you. I go through waves where I don't even really notice that I have anxiety. And then there's times where all of a sudden I'll notice a tick up inside of me of the symptoms that I experience with anxiety. Some of those will be that funny feeling in my chest, or like you feel like your heart just dropped. I do get a tightness in my throat. I become very passionate in my talking when I'm feeling very anxious. My opinion is known, whereas maybe I might have sat back more and just listened to a conversation. When I'm feeling anxious, the words kind of just roll out of my mouth. Obviously, I can't sit still when I'm feeling this way. I'm restless. I can't fall asleep early. These are some of my symptoms. If you are not aware or are just aware of the most common symptoms of anxiety, go ahead and Google it. There's a lot. I'm just giving you the things that happen to me, and they don't all happen when my anxiety is happening. Sometimes it just might be a little bit of restlessness. But I notice when these things start to happen that it's time for me to take the looking glass and look at myself. What is going on with me? Why am I feeling anxious? And that's happened to me in the past 2 weeks. Now, number one, I've been talking about anxiety as a subject with a lot of people. So, anxiety is obviously on my mind. But besides my own internal self, there is not one place, group conversation, individual phone conversations, coffee chats that I meet for, lunch dates that I meet for, going on podcasts where the environment and the political nature doesn't come up. And those countries that I mentioned to you in the beginning that have listened to me, their anxiety levels are heightened because of the politics or the war that's in their country. And so it's really hard to avoid. And yes, part of my anxiety is from that. And that's only because living here in the United States, like I said, it seems like there's nowhere you can go. There's no commercial that you're watching you watch a regular TV show and the commercials are political ads. You may be staying completely away from the news. But then there's the political ads. There's the political ads when you scroll through TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So there really is no way to get around it. Political propaganda. Then you have your people that you follow, especially your Facebook friends. Maybe they have different opinions of you and you try not to judge them. So I know that this is a part of my anxiety. But that's the parts that I really can't control. I have to figure out how in the best ways that I can to limit it, to ask not to talk about it. But a lot of it is out of my control and a lot of it's out of your control. And we'll get to that portion of anxiety. When you feel this elevation in your anxiety level, it's time to sit with yourself. And I know I say that a lot. But is there really something terrible about sitting with yourself? There isn't. When you sit with yourself, you allow your mind to relax, to open up, to give you the opportunity with this stage and phase to really focus on what is going on in your body, psychologically and physically. Well, I feel the physical symptoms. That's what starts it. And that's when I have to sit with myself and look at what is happening in my world or within myself that is elevating my anxiety. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to point your finger at, to pick up on. Sometimes you need to maybe take a break, come back to it in a little bit. Jot things down that come to your mind. Even if you're at work, have a little notepad or go on your smartphone and jot down the things that as they come to your mind or as they happen in your environment, jot them down. Those are the things that are causing me anxiety. The first step to coping with anxiety is figuring out why you feel anxious. Now, there will be people who will say, there's nothing going on in my world. I live a pretty calm life. There's no drama. I'm able to stay away from all that political stuff the best that I can. But yet I'm still feeling anxious. It could be something that is just going on within you. Struggles emotionally, trying to find your way. Or it can just be a chemical imbalance. And that is something you need to be very aware of, that no matter how you cope, no matter what strategies you use, you sit with yourself, you identify. When you start to feel that anxiety in your chest, you hop on the treadmill, you go take a walk, you go to the gym, you take a swim, and then you still are feeling these things, this elevation of anxiety, and it progresses or it continues. It's time to see a professional, let them evaluate you to see if it's situational something with inside yourself, or a chemical imbalance. Chemical imbalances can be controlled, obviously, by getting your serotonin levels up and your endorphins going. And those will help. Those are the good hormones that our brain releases to elevate our mood, to make us feel more relaxed and at ease. But sometimes that's not enough. And I want you to be aware that when you try your strategies and yet it continues, it's time to seek a professional and let them decide what they feel is the next best course of action. I've talked about that a lot lately, and people seeking out professional help. And the people that I've spoken to have really tried, like over the years, to work through their anxiety, to try the different coping. And there does get a point where if you see anxiety interfering with your daily existence and you've done all else, it's time to pick up the phone. Find a provider on your insurance and go see someone. Maybe you already do see someone. Talk about what's been happening. Maybe you were seeing someone but you stopped. Reach out to them again. Sometimes your community has mental health services that you can reach out to. All colleges have mental health services. If your child is going through something like this, point them in the direction of that at their university. The services are there. Individual, they have group. Some schools have meditation. I know at the University of Florida, they have a whole program where students can sign up for meditation in groups and group therapy, and they have individual therapies. They have crisis lines. So all universities, the reason why I'm honing in on that is because there is a time when a student is in college where a lot of this anxiety can begin to surface, even if they've never had debilitating anxiety before or it's interrupted their daily functioning. So that's why I wanted to give that little plug. I know I don't have a lot of college students who listen to me, but I am assuming I do have parents with college students who do struggle. So what do? You've identified it now. You know the symptoms. Either they're new to you and you've just had to become aware, or it's just something that you've had and you know that when it elevates, something is going on. And I've been like that for the past 2 weeks. And I had to spend a lot of time. I go outside. Sometimes I do a meditation. Sometimes I just listen to music and sing. And sometimes I just listen to my environment. For me to focus on what is going on with me. Why is my anxiety level elevated? Are you starting to identify what is causing you anxiety in your life? Now, if you set aside what's going on with you individually, it's just you. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's you and the thoughts in your head or the chemical imbalance. Well, we know now to seek out professional help. But what happens when it's the environment? The title of this podcast is Your Anxiety Connected to the Environment? And I bet no matter which type of anxiety you have, even that what's just going on within yourself has something to do with your environment. The external factors that are going on around you. Because let's be real, this world is a clusterfuck. And it doesn't matter what your politics are, it's a clusterfuck on any side and in any country. And if there's war, it just is chaos. As I said the word chaos, I could feel the anxiety in my chest. So I know as I put that thought into you, you're feeling the same thing because the world is fucking chaotic. So what do we do? What do we do when we're powerless? Or maybe we're not powerless. Maybe you're somebody who calls your congressman a woman. Maybe you're somebody who goes to different meetings about different things that you are upset, community meetings in the city you live in. Maybe you go and you protest or march. Maybe you sit back and just do nothing and just take it all in and just feel the frustration building inside of you. Our environment is so connected to us as individuals that we can't escape it. As hard as we try, we can't escape it. You may be with a group of people and somebody might say, I don't mean to bring up politics, but they do. And that's okay. But it just shows you how it's very complicated and very nuanced and very personal to each individual. And then you will have people who don't even freaking know what's going on in the world. And I will never be that person because I just can't. But I used to think to myself, that's uneducated. That's just so basic and simple. How do you not want to know what's going on in the world? How do you not want to educate yourself? How do you not want to be aware of what's going on in the world? I mean, I used to think that was like horrible if people didn't plug in to what the world chaos was. But now I'm starting to believe, because it is just off the charts, that maybe they're the smart ones who just can, and I don't know how they do it, can completely unplug from it. And I give you kudos if you are that person right now. I can't wrap my brain around it. Send me comments and let me know how you unplug. I'd love to share it here. I don't have any advice, therapeutic advice, to teach you on how to unplug, because I find that it's just everywhere in my world and in the people that I know and in the clients that I talk to. It's in everybody's world. And that's why no matter what you're doing or where you're going, it always enters the conversation. So if you know how to unplug, please, I beg you, let me know and I will share it here. But for the sake of argument, let's talk about how we can unplug. Or we do partially because, well, we start to limit our social media. Very difficult, I know. That's scrolling. It's almost like this backhanded thing, because scrolling can be very relaxing. You'll notice that people pick up their smartphones when they need a little break from their work, or when they're getting ready to go to bed at night, or they're sitting somewhere and waiting for an appointment. They begin to scroll. It can be very relaxing and entertaining. But as we said before, what always enters the picture? The chaos. The chaos always enters the picture. So it's a love-hate relationship, I believe, with social media and individuals and your anxiety. And social media 1000% adds to your anxiety. But I understand it's unavoidable. There is a very, 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 very small part of the population that does not connect with social media. It's hard to avoid. It's just everywhere. So social media, I know for a fact, with every one of you who goes on it, it is impacting you positively and negatively. You can't you can't tell me any different. I'm just a firm believer, all the research that I put into it. So that's your part of your environment that's affecting your anxiety levels. We talked about the news. That is part of it. What other areas, as you kind of in your mind's eye glance across the different aspects of your life that you deal with on a daily basis, as you take a glance in your mind's eye, note those that stand out to you as anxiety provokers and jot those down. Sometimes it may not be something that you're exposed to on a daily basis, but are exposed to maybe every few days or once a week. And that once a week can spark that anxiety to keep going. You may not be dealing with it on a daily basis, but once that seed is planted, it's there. And if you're dealing with anxiety, it elevates your anxiety environment. If your environment is chaotic around you, it adds to your anxiety. Your social environment, the people in your life, work, friends, family, children, significant others, parents. Are you a part of your social environment or your familial environment and can cause stressors? This is all environmental stress. Maybe you ride your bike to work every day and you went to get on your bike today and the tire's flat. Piques your anxiety. The unexpected environmental factors that pique our anxiety. We can't plan for all of it. There are some things that we know before we go into them that they're going to elevate our anxiety levels. If you have social anxiety and you know you're about to go into a social situation, you know your anxiety is going to be piqued. So what do? Well, it comes down to two words that we've used many, many times: coping mechanisms. What do you do to cope? What do you do when you know what's causing your anxiety, or you're trying to figure out what is causing your anxiety, and you're starting to feel the symptoms, and you're noting them, and they're increasing, and they're elevating, and now you're feeling not so great because the anxiety is really interfering? What are you doing? What are you doing to deal with that environmental anxiety? Silence. I bet there's a lot of silence out there. Maybe you're doing jack shit and you're just hoping it's going to go away. And it could subside when that stimuli is taken away from you. Or it could relax, but still kind of be there gnawing at you under the surface. What are you doing? If there's silence, it's a big red flag. Because you're not coping. You're not coping. You're not helping yourself. And you're affecting your mental health and the toll that anxiety can take physically on your body. Now, if there wasn't silence and you're able to identify some coping mechanisms, fantastic. But you're still feeling anxiety. You're still having the symptoms. You're still feeling provoked. The environment is still affecting you that way. Time to identify some new coping mechanisms. That's not always easy. It's not. I love to hear when someone is listening to my podcast while they're on the treadmill, exercising. and you know who you are. I love to hear that. It puts a huge smile on my face because number one, you're exercising for your physical health. The exercise is getting out anxiety, and you're listening to me talk about mental health. You're using your coping mechanisms. So, what do you do? Well, you all know if you've been listening to me, I go outside. I do the treadmill. I've picked up on the treadmill myself because it's just for me. Number one, I mean, I'm on that good old GLP-1, if you've been listening and you know, on that weight loss journey, which I want to add, speaking of TikToks, if you're on that GLP-1 journey with me or you're somebody who judges, screw you. Let me tell you why. It is not easy. It isn't this magic shot that you stick in your arm or your tummy or your leg and all of a sudden the weight just falls off you. No, you got to do all these other things to make sure you're getting your protein, you're eating enough, so your hair doesn't fall out, so your anxiety levels don't peak. All these different things that you have to maintain if you're on a GLP-1. And I know there's a huge amount of the population, and it can cause some anxiety if you are on it. You can feel your heart race a little bit. So if that is something you're experiencing and on GLP-1, just talk to your provider about it because it is a side effect of it. So for me, the GLP-1 semaglutide compounded injections are a coping mechanism for me, for my anxiety. A lot of my anxiety was revolving around my weight and the way I saw myself. And then it became the way I felt physically. And then I wasn't able to do things that I used to be able to do. And I'm old, but I'm not that old that those things should be limited. And so that was causing extreme anxiety for me. So the GLP-1, along with everything that I have to do to make it work, is a coping mechanism for me, for that portion of my anxiety. And so I've been exercising more because of the GLP-1, but it's also not just the physical, it's helping me get my anxiety out because like I said, it's been elevated the past 2 weeks. And I almost feel like I'm craving when I get that feeling in my chest that I want to hop on the treadmill. And it just, I put on Lady Gaga, Mayhem, and I go to town. And I just feel so much better after. So exercise, I will always preach. I freaking hate it. But right now, for the first time in a long time, it's working in my benefit. And going outside. What I want to talk to you about is a coping mechanism that I use all the time. And it really is simplistic. And you've probably heard about it before. You may have even done it before. But you don't realize when that falls to the wayside or you haven't tapped into that coping mechanism in a long time, the emotional and physical health benefits that you get from it. And it's grounding yourself in your environment. So we talk about, is your anxiety connected to the environment? Your environment is causing your anxiety. How can we take our environment and utilize it as a coping mechanism to decrease our anxiety? And that's by grounding yourself in your surroundings. Now you can pick any surrounding you want. You may be sitting at your desk at work and you can't leave it. You can still ground yourself. You can be in a conversation in a group of people and still ground yourself. You may be feeling anxious from the conversation or it's stressing you out. You can still ground yourself in that situation, even if you're in the middle of a conversation or listening to a conversation. You may be at a business, big table, conference table, in a meeting, and you feel like you need to ground yourself. The anxiety is building. You see, the power, you have power. Thinking positivity is powerful. And grounding yourself is your power in those situations. The reason why I choose grounding today to talk about how you can handle how your environment is causing your anxiety is because it's free. Because it costs nothing. All it takes is you identifying that you're feeling anxious, that you're beginning to feel uncomfortable, and you need to do something in that moment. And all you need is yourself, self-awareness, and a grounding technique. So I'm going to do a grounding technique that I did. I'm going to explain to you, I guess, what I did. And as I was doing it, I was jotting down so that I could use for this podcast my grounding experience. And like I said, I always go outside. And if you can go outside, to me, that's the most perfect place to ground yourself because you're one with nature. You can almost imagine, no matter where you're sitting, with your feet planted firmly on the ground, that roots, you're rooting yourself. Your feet are planted on the ground. You're rooting yourself with the ground, with the earth, with the nature. And that can be done anywhere. But if you can go outside, it's fantastic. Now, if you can close your eyes right now, close your eyes with me, and I'll take you on my grounding experience. If you can't, maybe you're that person on the treadmill, you can still in your mind's eye envision what I'm talking about. Just don't be in a dangerous situation where you really need to focus like driving a car. If you're driving a car and you want to go on this little grounding experience with me, then maybe put a pause on the podcast. And when you're able to park your car, do it, or when you get back in your car, or when you get home or back to the office, whatever it may be, if you can plug your earbuds back in. So let's get comfortable. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, get comfortable with the idea that you're going to ground yourself right now. So here's my grounding experience, and just take the ride with me and kind of imagine what I was seeing and feeling and thinking. Because in this moment, and it was probably about 10 a.m., still cool out here in South Florida, sitting in the shade, my dog roaming around the yard, doing her thing, sniffing the air, and it was me time. I identified, I know I'm having anxiety. What am I going to do? Because even in this moment that sounds quite peaceful, I still feel anxiety in my chest. So I begin a grounding technique. And this grounding technique encompasses all my 5 senses, but just sitting in a chair. And I sit there and I take in some deep breaths, trying to relax myself. But I'm still feeling uneasy. And I want to alleviate this feeling that I have in my chest. You see, yes, maybe you're saying to yourself, she's a mental health podcaster. She worked in psychiatric hospitals as a therapist. Why is she having so much anxiety? Because she's only human? Just because I know how to teach you how to cope, how to identify what's going on with you, how to motivate you to want to make positive changes in your life, I'm still human. And I still have chemical imbalances or situational things or environmental things that affect my world. So in this moment, I'm feeling quite anxious sitting in my Adirondack chair. and I begin to focus. I mean, really focus. And I do this by looking up at the sky. And on this particular day, there's lots of clouds in the sky. And when we're outside, we glance at the sky when we walk out. It's a cloudy day. Ooh, there's not a cloud in the sky. What a blue, beautiful sky. And that's about it. But on this day, I decided, with my sunglasses on to protect my eyes, to look up at the clouds. And the first fascination that I see, the thing that catches my eye, is how the clouds are moving, like they're dancing. And they're changing shape as I'm watching them. And some move out of view. It's windy. And so the clouds are moving faster. Some look like they're growing. Some look like they're dissipating. And as I'm looking at this dance of clouds in the sky, I feel the breeze on my face. I smell fresh cut grass. And as I look away from the clouds, I automatically just look down as a reflex type of action. And I see the dirt beneath my feet. And I begin to plant my feet really hard on the earth underneath me. Then I look towards the grass. It looks green. It's recently cut, hence the smell of the fresh cut grass. And I see the dew, still the dew bubbles on the grass. And I just kind of watch them for a moment as they glisten on the blades of grass. And I see my dog walk through them, and I think, now her paws will be wet. But she's connecting with her environment the same way I am, elevating her mood. Her endorphins begin to flow as well as mine. I then start to really tap in. I start to realize what I'm doing. It happened at a subconscious level, but I realized that I was grounding myself in my environment. And I begin to hear the swaying of the palm trees. And I look up at them, and there's some palm fronds that are kind of hanging, and they're hitting the tree. And you could hear the noise as the wind blows and it hits the tree. And I begin to think of the sound that it will make when it finally falls and hits the ground. I'm fortunate enough to live on a lake. And as I'm watching the trees sway, the beautiful palm trees, I hear a splash and another splash. It's fish jumping in the water. So now my eyes kind of dart over there, and I'm waiting to see the fish jump. It happens so quickly. And then, in the corner of my eye, I see something moving. It's our local friendly alligator, just swimming in the lake. And yes, there's a fence between me and the lake and the alligator. But I watch the alligator. I can see its snout just above the water's line. His or her tail kind of moving through the water, propelling them. They move fast, they move slow, almost going in a straight line. The sun begins to peek out, and those pointy bumps on the back of the alligator begin to glisten in the sunlight. As I watch this deadly creature, very dangerous, but protected from, I can see the beauty in this Florida gator. And thinking and getting a little nervous because there's marsh hens right by this alligator. The alligator wants nothing to do with them. He or she is just enjoying the cool water and the sunlight glistening on its skin. I then see around the alligator lily pads. There's no frogs on these lily pads, but they look very pretty. They have some flowers coming out of them. They're green, and they just add to the beauty of the lake scene. In the distance, I hear a lawnmower cutting someone else's grass. It makes me focus again on the smell of the fresh cut grass. As I'm looking at the lily pads, I begin to hear another noise. And I look up instinctually, and there's an airplane in the sky. And I love watching airplanes fly over and just go off into the distance. It's just so fascinating how they cut through those clouds that I was admiring and the movement of the airplane. And then my eyes go back to the water and I see birds flying over the water. And I look down and I can see the bird's reflection in the water. And the birds begin to fly so low, it's like they skim that water top without touching the water. And their reflection glistens back. And it's a beautiful dance to watch. And then the water begins to ripple and the reflection gets distorted. And I watch these birds as they look for a place to perch. They're very white birds. And here where I live, these white birds like to perch in big bushy trees, low bushy trees. And hundreds of them will. And they practically turn the tree white. So I see this flock of birds trying to find a place to perch. And as I sip the taste of my morning coffee, the warmth of it, the sweetness of it, it's soothing me. It's calming me inside as my environment is calming me. As I look at the marsh hen, because it catches my eye, they begin to put their beaks into the water and dive down in the water and pop up. And it's just a fun little dance to watch them as their snouts or their beaks go into the water. And so the alligator catches my eye again. He's come back into my eye's view. But I see him swimming away, and I watch as his tail moves through the water back and forth, and he slowly disappears across the lake into the marsh-like grass. And as he disappears, I find myself taking in a big sigh. A sigh of peace, a sigh of relaxation, a sigh that my anxiety is no longer in my chest. I'm relaxed. I grounded myself in my environment by focusing on taste, touch, sound, smell, and what my eyes were able to focus on. I grounded myself by just focusing on my environment. Now, I was able to sit in this calm, peaceful place, but sometimes you may not be in a calm, peaceful place, but you feel the elevation of the anxiety. And you know if you don't release it or cope with it, very soon it's going to affect your functioning. So sometimes in that moment, begin to focus. What do you see around you? What do you touch? What do you hear? Do you have taste? What is going on around you? And focus on each point for a moment. Don't just glaze over it. Focus on it. Maybe you are sitting at a big meeting at a table in an office. Look out the window for a second. Catch something outside. Look at the painting that might be on the wall. Don't just glance over it. Look at the painting. What's it about? What are the colors? What feelings are it evoking in you? If you feel your legs shaking out of nervousness, you know that nervous up and down that we get, put your feet firmly on the floor under the table and imagine yourself connecting with the earth, grounding yourself. Grounding can be done anywhere you are, no matter what you are doing. So how are you going to ground yourself? Either now in the moment that you feel like you need it because you're anxious, and that's why you went through and browsed through and saw this topic of my podcast and wanted to listen to it. Or maybe you know that something anxiety provoking is going to be happening soon. You can plan how to cope. Or maybe you're just experiencing and you need to know in the moment or later when you get home how you're going to cope with this ongoing anxiety. And once again, seek professional help if you're at that point. Don't starve yourself of something that could really help you and make you feel healthier and more functional in your daily life. Well, as I'm sitting in my office here doing this podcast, which, gosh, I've talked for 47 minutes. That's crazy. I can hear the bird outside my window. And my lunch just came. So I think I'm going to go sit outside and have my lunch and take in the environment and use my environment instead of letting it cause my anxiety to decrease my anxiety. I put the challenge onto you. Thank you for joining me today at Wide Open Spaces with Elise, this fiery redhead. Remember, positive thoughts always create positive energy. Go out and explore all those wide open spaces in your world. And go to my social media, please. Like, follow, love, and comment. And until next week, my friends, go out and be in your environment. Ciao.